Hey there, everyone. Today I'm going to show you a trap in the Owens Defense. This is a quick game between a player named Bend, Bhend, with the white pieces against a player named Schneider in the black with the black pieces. So the game started off e4, b6. This is known as the Owens Defense, and named after a player in the 1800s named Reverend Owens, who played this opening a lot. And the most obvious idea is to bring the bishop here and fiend kettle it and putting pressure on this diagonal. Many times the game can transpose to a type of French defense also, where black just deals with the problem of his c8 bishop early. And black usually has setups with the pawn here on e6. For instance, say d4, e6, knight c3, bishop b7, let's say knight f3, bishop b4. Now this pawn is threatened to be captured, and say after bishop d3, put some more pressure on the pawn. Let's say after queen e2, then d5, and let's just say for argument's sake e5. Let's hop back. Knight fd7, castle, and c5. Not the best moves, but I just wanted to illustrate how you could get a position that's typical of a French defense in this position from b6. So b6 is not a real bad move. It just basically just gives up the center prematurely, and white is able to get quite a grip in the center. And also kingside development is neglected with the move b6, and that's some of the reasons why you won't see it at the top levels of chess. Black neglects this whole important kingside as well as the center in order to solve one problem. But the annoying thing about Owens' defense is that you don't see it too often, and usually players that play it are usually pretty well prepared. This is a nice short game that you could kind of store in your mental database. The setup is a good setup, especially when you don't see an opening that much, that you can just whip this out. So this game went e4, b6, d4, just classical setup. Is the bishop behind this pawn. Knight c3, protecting the pawn. e6, and of course the idea, the same as in the Nimzo Indian, same as in the French 1 hour variation. To pin this knight right here on c3 and pressure this pawn. Bishop d3, protecting the pawn. Knight f6. Now we have two pieces on the pawn, but we have two pieces protecting it. Knight g2. Now this is important to remember. The knight doesn't go here to f3. It can go there, but the idea is to bring this knight to f4. So let's see the game continuation. Another idea of bringing this knight here is to back this knight up, so that when this bishop finally does come here, that basically black will be facing the question of whether just to give the bishop up for a knight without any compensation. In this case, it would be damaging the pawn structure with double pawns. With the knight here on e2, the knight can just simply replace the other knight, and this dark square bishop will just be gone, leaving its dark squares vulnerable to the remaining bishop on c1. So d5, black chooses not to put his bishop here yet and strikes in the center. So now we have 1, 2, 3 units on e4 and only 2. This forces white's hand. He has to do something about the center now. He either can push or he can try to capture. e5, he pushes, attacking the knight, and now you can see what I was talking about, how the position resembles that of a French advanced variation. Now we can see by the direction of the pawns that normally white has more space over here on the king side, and this is where his attack would come. Black, on the other hand, is set up to play c5 and attack this pawn according to the principles of Nimzowitsch, attacking the pawn at the base of the chain, thus weakening the whole chain. So white's pawn chain is starts at d4, and it's logical to play the move c5 to destroy the d4 pawn, and then the e5 pawn will be weak, also susceptible to capture. Knight f4. Excuse me. And this was the idea that I was telling you about. And what this knight does is put pressure on the light squares. On f3, it wouldn't really be doing anything with the position being closed. The knight on f3 is pretty ineffective. Only thing it is serving a defensive purpose, whereas on f4 serves an attacking purpose. So c5, the d pawn was unprotected, and it looks like a logical move to play in the position, and it is a logical move for all the reasons that we explained earlier. The problem is that in chess, tactics are king, and any strategy must be founded on sound tactical reasoning. So here, there's a flaw in this move tactically, and it reveals the ultimate purpose and the force of this move, knight f4. White played knight takes e6. Queen e7 was played, and you wonder, why can't he just take? And I just take it back one move. First of all, remember what I said before about these pawns being here and white having more space on the king side to attack. The second thing is he has the bishop here, and he has these light squares all pointing toward the king side, excuse me. So knight takes e6 is based on this idea. Now if f takes e6, now we can really see the king exposed on the light squares. So what would happen is simply queen h5, and if king e7, then bishop g5, and just regaining the piece and more. So e takes f6, what happened? Check. And of course there can't be a capture here, because if G takes f6, then simply bishop takes f6, drawing the king further away from the queen. King takes f6, and then queen h4. Check, picking up the queen on d8. So therefore, just e takes f6, check, and then the king would have to go somewhere, let's say king d7 or something like that. And then white is just winning, say queen f7, and he would have to sacrifice more pieces, because this bishop's going to come here, or the knight will come here. For instance, if he tried to go here, then this bishop could just drop back. So there's just too many, there's too many openings in black's camp. So this is why after knight takes e6, so just get a good look at this position before the sacrifice, and you'll understand why that knight is on f4 in that position. So just remember the idea of knight going to e2 and the f4, keeping an eye on these squares, and then the bishop and queen lined up on the light squares. You remember those ideas, then the moves will come to you naturally in the game. So knight takes e6 was played, queen e7. So we already know why this pawn didn't capture the knight, because it would just open up everything. Okay, so after queen e7, now what does white do? Now white has this fork here. Let's take some of these arrows away. Okay, notice white has this fork on c7. He could pick up this rook, at least pick up the exchange, by checking the king and attacking the rook at the same time. But white has even something more devastating up his sleeve. And if you want to pause the video to figure that out, do it now. Because after queen e7, white played knight takes d5, just destroying the mighty pawn center of black. After knight takes d5, black resigned. Reason why is as follows. After bishop takes d5, knight c7 check. The king is forced to d8. Knight takes d5. And let's say queen e8. And just simply c3, reinforcing this pawn. And black is just white is just up material. White is actually up, just has the king exposed and it's up in pawns. So for instance, keep continuing, knight c6, castle, rook c8, and bishop h6, etc. And we can see that black's position is just in shambles. King is exposed, and he's lost his right to castle. And again, white is up material. So that is why he resigned. Now, just so you know, knight c7 check could have been played just as well, and then followed up with knight to d5. Knight takes d5. So either way, that would have worked. Okay, so just real quick, let's look at the game one more time, and just try to remember this idea right here. The knight's here. It's kind of like the Rubinstein variation in Nimzo Indian. The same idea is basically to make the capture of this bishop on this c3 knight useless, since this knight will just replace it. And I think that's why black held back his bishop, because he figured, well, why bring it here with these two knights there together. And then knight f4. c5 was the error. If you didn't know, c5 was the major error in the game, which allowed the explosion on e6. And this is a good game because it's just, the position looks innocuous. It looks like nothing, just another closed position. Nothing's really going on, but it's just funny that black is actually lost at this point. So I found that game very interesting. Alright guys, so that's it for that video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. Good luck in your chess games.